Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Sunday night live stream. I hope you're all doing great tonight, and today we are going to be kitbashing some Gue'Ron'Vesa or Gue'Ron'Vesa, or however you pronounce it, but either way, they are basically Tau Space Marines. Now, not entirely sure what they are exactly. Are they Space Marines that have fallen to the greater good? Are they clones of Space Marines? Are they humans who've been augmented by the Tau to become Space Marines? But either way, they're basically Tau Space Marines. And as few of you in the chat have already been saying, they are extreme heresy. Absolute extreme heresy. Good evening to everyone in the chat there. It's been quite busy already. We've only just started the stream. So a big thank you for everyone for joining me. And if you have any questions as I go about doing this kit bash, then be sure to let me know and I will answer them as I go along. So, I've been thinking about doing this particular kit bash for quite a while now, and it's been one which has been suggested by a few people, and I've seen some of the artwork. If you see the thumbnail, seen like the kind of cool Tau Space Marine artwork. There's a lot of it out on the internet, so yeah, definitely do a quick Google if you want to know what I'm talking about. And recently, when I did my 3D printing video, I actually came across and I featured a few of those components, which are basically Tau Space Marines. I'm just kind of finding them now. And so these are 3D printed components that I had. If you've seen that video, then you'll already be aware of these. I'm not going to be using this in this guide because not everyone has access to a 3D printer, so telling you to use these components isn't really helpful. But yeah, these are kind of what inspired me to do it. Really nice kind of 3D printed Tau conversion components. Instead, I'm going to be using these as a basis. Now, these are from Anvil Industries, and these are basically their Exo Lord Rangers. I think they're about Primaris scale. If I just bring in a Primaris Space Marine, you can see that they're about Primaris in scale, and the torsos as well. These are just resin conversion parts. If you're familiar with my kit bashing videos, especially the Imperial Guard ones, you'll also notice I've featured these guys in the past, and they basically come on sprues. You can see here we've got a few different legs available there as well. So this is basically going to be the basis of the guide. I was considering using Space Marine torsos. I was considering using the bodies, but I think if I just bring in like quite a blank one, I think that this armor it's a nice combination between Space Marine armor, but then also has that aspect of being manufactured to kind of be different to different technologies, different specifications, things like that. So it's kind of close enough, but then also a little bit kind of in between Space Marines and Tau technology. So yeah, that's the basis of this, and this is how I'm going to start. I've not made any modifications to these. These are just components. All I've done is just trim down the sides, and this will be the basis. So I'm just going to glue these together to begin with, and that's the best place to start. So whilst I'm doing this, let's have a look at the comments, at the chat, sorry, and see what you guys are talking about. So we have a lot of Weeb Marines being thrown around. We have, you should convert a Dreadnought into an anime mech to go with these Marines. I mean, there's some pretty cool kind of like Gundam kits that you could probably use as a good basis for that. So I'm using super glue here, by the way. This is obviously resin, so you can't use the usual plastic glue, so just popped a bit of super glue in there. Really nice join on those as well. So you can see a bit better there. Where did you get these components from? Or just mess up? These components are from Anvil Industry. I'll probably put a link in the description once this video is live fully. But yeah, Anvil Industry, and these are part of their Exo Lord range. So yeah, check those guys out. So I'm gonna basically just let this dry before I start doing anything else. I'm gonna have to do quite a little bit of changes. What is your favourite faction in 40k out of curiosity? It really does vary. It chops and changes between different things. I think I quite like Space Marines just because there's a lot of variety that you can have there, and there's also in terms of conversions, but I don't like exactly how they're portrayed as just being very generic and very basic. I like the really kind of nitty gritty, which is why I like doing the different conversions, things like that. Before I forget as well, actually, make sure you join the Discord if you haven't done it already. There's some really great people on there and who love kit bashing, conversions, painting, 3D printing, anything like that. So check it out. There should be a link to that in the description below. So if you haven't joined it already, then be sure to do so. And yeah, Right, so we've got the torso, we've got the legs, and that's pretty much it. All of the components I'm going to be using now are from Games Workshop kits. These are the only third-party components I'm using so far. They do some heads as well and backpacks and arms that work with these, but I want to kind of tie it into 40k a bit more. So I've grabbed myself some Intercessor arms here. Just do basic kind of bolter arms, nothing fancy about them. And when I've done some dry fits, you can see how they kind of fit into the shoulder pads, but because these are ball and socket and these are flat, they're not perfect fit really. So we need to do something about that ideally. I'm just going to make sure just get a dry fit here just to make sure that the arm sits properly. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of blue tack here. Just so I can do a quick dry fit. Pop that into there. So I make sure that the arm fits correctly here. Oh, I just knocked it off. So the torso, you can see there, is about the same size as Primaris torso, so it should work quite nicely. Now this is probably going to need to be pinned into the torso. I don't think it will fit with just normal glue, and if it does, it will be very, very loose. So we're going to do a little bit of drilling, but before I do that, I'm just going to try and remove this tiny bit of blue tack that's stuck. There we go. Okay, so we need a bolter. We need something which is tau looking enough. So I'm going to start off with this regular Intercessor Bolter, and I've just got the Stalker variant there. I'm just going to basically use that, but I'm going to make some modifications. So first thing we need to do is to get rid of this Imperial Aquila. We do not want this on some sort of tau traitor / clone / human variant. But yeah, we need to get rid of that. We've had a super chat from James Loudenslager. Thank you very much. You do great work. Please don't burn out. To be honest, at the moment, I'm just kind of really enjoying it. There's not much else to do at the moment. In the UK, we are locked down again for at least another month, so there's not much else to do. So I'm just going to make the videos. But I enjoy them. I don't make videos that I don't enjoy making. I think as soon as I start making videos that I don't enjoy making, I'm going to stop doing the channel because it starts being fun then. So I'm just going to carefully remove this off here. It's very, very simple to do. I'm using my scalpel again, and everyone will always complain about my use of scalpel blades, but I very, 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 very rarely cut myself with a scalpel. Famous last words, I know, but we'll see. I just find they're really sharp, and the blades are pretty cheap, so you can swap them out quite easily. So I'm basically just carefully shaving. The trick is here to not apply too much pressure. As soon as you start applying a lot of pressure, you start losing control, and then as soon as you slip, then all that pressure is going into your finger, and that's how you cut yourself. So be careful. So yeah. You may need some sanding sticks. Yeah, I've tried files and sanding sticks before, but I never quite like the same. It doesn't feel quite the same as using a knife. I like the precision that using a blade gives you over sanding sticks. They do have their uses, but for the kind of intricate things like this, I like to use my scalpel. Not for everyone, but it is for me. Now, I was kind of at two minds here. I did a little bit of a test earlier just to see how it went, and I'll show you the test. It didn't really kind of come out as much as I like. This is my initial idea. So I'd basically cut off, if I bring in the bolter here so you can better see, I cut off the muzzle brake there, and then this little section at the bottom, just remove that, and then I trimmed this section here from a pulse carbine, I think it was, and then attached it. And I wasn't really super happy with the result. The cuts weren't clean enough to begin with, so it didn't really line up properly. You can see we've got a gap in the middle, but I didn't really like how it looked. So I've decided to keep things a bit more simple. I think these guys would probably use slug technology anyway. They would use bolter rounds that had been designed by the Tau to be as effective, and the gun would just be modified accordingly. So we're not going to go for that original idea. It's not a bad idea, but I just don't think it works quite well, and it's harder to do the conversion. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves. I don't think I already grabbed a. Well, I have to remove it from the sprue. So I've just got my Tau Fire Warrior kit here. And I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using one of these arms here. I'm going to use one of these spare ones, actually, just because it's a lot easier to use them. Just going to grab one of these pulse carbines. Just clip those away. And what I want to do is I want to use the underslung grenade launcher attachment there. I think it's still called that. It used to be anyway, but I'm basically going to adopt this into being some sort of optic that I can glue onto the top of the bolter in place of this kind of more imperial looking scope. So just going to have a quick sip of water and I'm going to have a look at the comments again. If you don't have visible scars on your fingers, you even hobby. Actually, I do have visible scars on my fingers from years ago when I used plain hobby knives. You can see, I don't know if you can see it very well, but just there, you can see it on my finger, and I've got quite a deep one where I actually cut my finger and then I went bowling later that evening. And so it stopped bleeding, took a while to, and then it suddenly started bleeding when I picked up the bowling ball. And then the bowling ball just had a trail of blood on it as I rolled it down the alley, so it was quite grim. I've got a few cuts on various different fingers where I've been trimming and cutting, so yeah, I have the scars, but I just haven't cut myself in a long time. I had a feeling you'd give this one a try. Yeah, it was kind of a nice it was a nice kind of one to do. It's sort of still Space Marines, but then it's also Xenos as well, so yeah, it's good to do something a little bit different. Where is your hobby knife from? So this is a Swan Morton scalpel. You can see there, Swan Morton. It's a size 3 handle, and the blades that I use are 10A blades. You can just about see it there. You can pick them up from eBay. You can get different handle sizes, different handle shapes. You can get different blade shapes as well. I just find these ones to be the most useful. The blade's pretty cheap, so you can swap those out and get nice sharp blades all the time. It came in Astartes. The only Astartes I could see joining the Tower Empire is the Alpha Legion for personal gain, of course, be it for resource of weapons, strategic locations, info, or tech in general. I think there's a lot of... Yeah, I think in the current lore, there's not much really... You can understand Chaos because Chaos corrupts, but then it's not difficult to see that maybe Space Marines could become pirates, maybe. They could. There are some chapters that become pirates, but don't necessarily... Or renegade, that don't fall to Chaos completely. So I guess you could have chapters that are like that, but then they get swayed in by the greater good, or they get supplied because of necessities, things like that. So yeah, let's go back to this. So we're going to start making some cuts here. I'm going to keep this little handle here. I'm going to basically cut it all the way along there. I might use this handle, I might not, but I'm going to keep it for the time being. I'm going to use my knife for this because the gap down there is fairly thin. I don't want to damage too much, so hopefully the autofocus stays. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to keep my fingers well out of the way. I'm going to make a series of scores. So I'm just going to very lightly press on. I'm just doing this a few times, just applying a very small amount of pressure. And then I'll do the same on the other side. There you go. And you can see it just cut through. Made a really nice clean cut without damaging too much of either side. So that's another kind of option for you to cut. You don't need to use clippers, you don't need to brute force it. Just a few very light pressure cuts is enough to cut through things. And I've actually broke the handle off. I'm guessing I'm not using it now. That's fine. I don't think I would have used it much anyway. This is the thing that you always see in these live streams. You don't see them in the actual videos. In the video I could have said, oh yeah, that's completely intentional. In the live stream, I've already said it now. I've said that I was going to keep that, but completely failed. Seeing behind the curtain now, guys. Okay. I'm going to clean that up, just to remove any mold lines and just clean up the cuts as well. Get this all flattened out, so it doesn't look like it's been attached to anything else. So what's everyone been working on this weekend then? It's Sunday evening in the UK, so people should have had a couple of days of hobby time. Any good hobby projects on the go for anyone? Just remove the mold line from the other side as well. That scratch noise hurts. Yeah, I've kind of become completely numb to it now. Some people really hate these kind of sounds. So we've got quite a few people coming in. We've got Tau Baneblade incoming. Black Templar stuff, finishing my Blood Angels army, finished building the Silent King. It looks like an interesting kit, that one does. Emperor's Children, Phoenix Guard, Custom Custodies, Custom Chaos Warman, completely different than Chaos. Working on Leviathan Dreadnought. Recently made 4 sheets of hand-molded paper. Interesting. There's quite a lot coming in. Sorry if I don't get all these guys, but Hobby ASMR, yeah. Primus World Eater, nice. Right. I recently started building a Sentinel based on something from Iron Harvest 1920. The Smalley, I think it's called. Yes, Iron Harvest. That's also, if anyone plays board games and you've played Scythe, Iron Harvest is, if I'm not mistaken, is basically based on the same set of artwork, so same set in the same kind of universe. It's like an alternate early 20th century where there's like mechs and stuff. It's a very good board game. If you ever want a decent board game to play, Scythe is excellent fun. But the aesthetics and the artwork for that is fantastic as well. I think there's also there's a series that came out, was it Tales from the Loop? I think, which is also based on the same guy's artwork, which is like quite nice. But yeah, I would actually really like to do something along those lines because that's a really nice aesthetic, and I think it fits really quite well into a lot of Imperial Guard aesthetics, especially like Vostroyans and things like that. They very much fit into that nice style. Nice boy, yes, Scythe is awesome. We used to have a gaming club at work, obviously before COVID. That was one of the kind of the club favourites to play. That one was. So you can see here now I've removed it. It kind of has quite a nice little scope optic appearance. I'm just going to bring that in focus a bit more. So we're going to need to remove this here. I'm going to keep the box magazine. I think that's fine. I can imagine Tau making kind of slug rounds for these, so that's fine. I'm not too bothered about it being pulsed. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure here. I'm just working this. There you go. So the idea is don't apply too much pressure. Just a little bit of pressure and a sharp knife, and you should cut through things nicely. Yeah, Cayman have started. I would love some Iron Harvest model kits. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool if we got an actual range. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if someone picks it up as an actual tabletop game, because I think it would work really well. You could have infantry and mechs and things like that. It'd be a very rich world that you can build upon. Something, especially if you've played Scythe, you kind of build mechs in that, and those are like your more powerful kind of units which can attack other people's workers and mechs and things like that. So I'm just cleaning that up there. I'm going to flatten that out a little bit actually. So I just need to grab my file. This is quite what files are good for, getting more of an even flat surface. I'm just going to flatten that out just so I've got a good mounting point for that kind of scope symbol. Now before I actually glue this on, I'm going to have a look to see if there's anything else that I can attach. So I think for the time being, it's still recognizable as a bolter, but we've got a little bit of Tau flare with that. I might actually remove this foreguard here, because this is one thing that a lot of people always say about why they have iron sights, but I actually think these are sensors. I don't know if they're iron sights, but I might remove that just to change the profile of the gun slightly. I might also remove this as well. I think streamlining the gun a little bit might make it look a bit more Tau-like. Yeah, let's do that. So let's trim that off first. I'm going to cut that in line with the ridges that were already there. Very easy to cut through. Just going to clean that up. Okay. Smooth that out a little bit. Let's do the same for the bottom under here as well. It's just all about these like kind of small details sometimes. You don't always have to add things to a model to be able to convert it. You can just remove things that are already there, and that will change the silhouette. And the gun starts to look more different. And it's kind of looking a little bit more, a little bit squatter, so it makes it look a little bit more like a pulse rifle. Not quite, but it's kind of getting that aesthetic. So let's have a look on. Let's look on the Tau kit. Let's see if there's anything else we can attach to this here. Nothing on that side. What else have we got? Sometimes it's just about looking at components and seeing what you can use them for. Let's see. What have we got here? Is there anything we can use from this? I'm thinking we actually remove maybe one of the sections, one of these sections here. Attach them on there. I think it might again change up the profile. Let's do that. If in doubt, just glue things, cut things off other things and glue things on. So I'm going to try and keep this as kind of close to the original shape. So I'm going to cut, let's cut here first. Is that what I want to do? Yeah. So let's cut here first. And then we can do another cut around the top. There we go. Tower emblem on the side might help. Yeah, I think we can probably get away with... It might be difficult to source one of those without really carving up. I was thinking of shaving off the small round disc there, but I don't know if I'd be able to shave it off effectively enough to get that. You know what, actually, that's pretty much the same size as that. It's got me thinking. Would it look weird if I just kind of filed that down a little bit and just glued that to the side? Would it look too much? Let's go for it. Let's do that instead. Let's cut that there. Okay. Let's just trim that up first after we've removed it. Get nice and clean again. Imagine seeing an entire squad of your brethren being ripped limb from limb by a single marine with a power sword, then later being assigned to work alongside one. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that with the Tau, at least they could see the benefit in having one of them on their side. At the end of the day, if you've got a guy with a power sword on your side, chances are he's going to be... The guy with the power sword on the other side is going to be dealing with him first rather than you, so it gives you a chance to let off a few pulse rifle rounds beforehand. Okay, so let's see how this is looking so far. Yeah, I'm thinking this is roughly the same kind of size as that top section. So if I was to trim this little protuberance there and to trim the other side, I think that'd work okay. It gives us a recognizable Tau symbol as well. So let's trim that off first. Hi, Spyros. Trim that down. I don't want it to protrude too much. I want to make it quite flat. Let's just file that flat again. And then we need to remove this little tab here as well. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. I think if we attach everything that we've got so far, I think that'll work nice. Let's just attach that for now, temporarily. Yep, lines up nicely. Let's glue it on. We've got Almutanto. Yes, I think if not mistaken, he's the guy who is responsible for some of the Gue'Ron'Vesa kit components. I think, you correct me if is this one of yours? One of the ones I showed at the beginning? This these ones, some of the ones that I printed off. Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely always an in-lore explanation for Space Marines to be involved with Tau. I don't think we'd ever see it official because, as it's been touched on in the comments, Games Workshop definitely want to kind of see more of a defined separation between their factions. And if you have a Space Marine, people will complain, people won't be able to kind of, it'll be a bit confusing for newer players. I think it works quite well. Bulks out the gun, makes it look a little bit different. And if I attach this here, let's pop that there as well. If anyone says anything, it's a marker light. We'll just marker light attachment. There we go. And then that means that I should just be able to attach this. So I attach it like that, I think. Yep, let's go for that. Pop a little bit of glue on top. Then we can attach the scope like so. So probably need to do more trimming there actually, just now I've noticed. I'm just going to trim this section here just a little bit more, just to make room. Okay, let's try again. I think this is the thing about what I like to do with my conversions, because I think a lot of people get very bogged down in what is official, what is in a codex, what is in a book or anything like that. And if it's not in any of those things, then it can't be possible. And I think it's disappointing me because there's so many different possibilities, different ideas that can be created if people just let go of what's already written down. You can still stay true to the concept of 40k whilst making Tau Space Marines, or you can do anything. But at the end of the day, if Games Workshop decided to completely change the lore tomorrow, they could do it and no one could stop them and people would still buy the game. So okay, so I think we've kind of gone for a bit more like a Spec Ops kind of Bolter there actually. It's quite nice, quite happy with that. So this is the next part. So now I've done the arms, I can actually start to attach them to these. Now, as I've already mentioned, these have ball and sockets. These don't. These are flat. So these need to be attached in there a little bit more securely. So I'm going to do some pinning. Okay, so let's grab my pin vise and we're going to drill a couple of holes into the direct centers there. Please leave the stream on the channel. Yes, I always put the streams up later on, which is why I don't have any like music or anything in the background, because that usually gets things flagged on these streams and it means you can't have them on afterwards. Have you considered converting Age of Sigmar models? I can see great Kharadron Overlords or thematic Cities of Sigmar. Yeah, I have actually done some already. Actually, I don't know if did you see this guy before? As each marked Chaos Warrior. So yeah, I have done some Cities of Sigmar. I am hoping to do. I've got some ideas for some more Cities of Sigmar stuff. So yeah, maybe even more in the future. So I've actually managed to drill a hole directly through the center going from both sides. I'm quite impressed with that. So let's grab a length of wire here, and I'm going to just add a little bit of super glue. Cayman Astartes, thank you very much. Is there a specific Astartes you're making from his art? I certain designed model from the concept work, or making your own based on his work. So this is basically just a kind of an idea. I've seen a lot of the artwork, and it's kind of inspired me to just have a go at doing this myself. A few people have suggested human helpers, things like that, and I thought, why not go the whole hog and actually do a Space Marine rather than just a generic Imperial Guardsman. But yeah, there's not a particular model that I'm basing it off. There's literally just me going, I like the idea. I've got a few components that I can use. Let's go for it. And then if it works, it works. But yeah, nothing in particular. Just a little bit of a inspiration from the artwork, and then just what everything looks good. Thought a good basis for this kind of conversion would be infiltrators with their antenna replacing their tower pieces. That's actually a good point. Yeah, I think in general, if you're going to be using generic Space Marines, then Phobos Arm would be one of the better options for this. It kind of already has that more rounded appearance to it. Oh, man, I need to get some better clippers for this. So just basically super glued some wire into those holes that I drilled. And these just act as slightly better shoulder joints. Just means I can attach these to them and should be okay going on from there. Now, one of the things I was considering is the right shoulder pad. The left shoulder pad, I've already decided I'm going to be using one of these shoulder pads from a Tau Crisis battlesuit. They're pretty big, but with a little bit of adjustment, I think they'll work okay. You can see there. But for the left, I think I'm going to keep that as it is. I'm not going to attach anything, and I want to keep that style that Tau have, where they have one small shoulder pad and one big shoulder pad, and I think that kind of gives it a nice idea. There we go. Crackno112, I am making Tau Marines. I wish the kits I brought would arrive already so I could convert something alongside you. Yeah, that's always the trouble. I actually have so many ideas for conversions, and I just end up ordering kits, and then I'm thinking, I've got some spiders from War Games Atlantic on the way, and I was hoping they'd arrive yesterday. They didn't. But I've got some ideas that are going to involve doing some spider conversions. Could you use putty as well, or is that not advisable? So you can use putty, but the thing is about what I've used putty for in the past and what other people have used it for. I mean, I can't really. It's harder to use in this kind of video anyway, because I've got to wait for it to dry properly. But with putty, you would have to make a small ball of it, pop it into the hole, well, glue it into the hole probably, wait for it to dry, and then glue that. So you almost create like a step, I suppose. But using wet putty in here, it wouldn't create a great bond. So what I've done there is I've just basically drilled another hole into this arm. And you can see that it's just enough just to kind of get a little bit more support. So I'm going to keep that as it is for the time being. And then I'm going to bring in the other arm. And if I just do the same, pop one in the middle. The infantry heads also look very close to the concept art helmets. Yes, I agree. They're probably, like I said, they probably are the best basis if you're just going for pure Games Workshop kits. I really like these torsos though, from the Exo Lord's torsos from Anvil Industries. So those are definitely interesting kits to go for. They give you a little bit of a different kind of idea. Another one from Cayman Astartes. Thank you very much. Possible Tau Sisters of Battle. Interesting. I haven't really considered that one. It's quite a cool idea, actually. So I've drilled the hole there. Just need to clip a little more off, actually. It's a little bit too long at the moment. Let's just trim that down. And then that should give me, there we go, much better fit now. So I can actually glue the arms to these little rods now. So hopefully everything lines up. Does it line up? Just about. Not quite. Oh, there we go. We've got it. I might trim this arm a little bit, actually. I think it's poking out a little bit too much. That's possibly what my problem is at the moment. Just remove a little bit off there. A little bit more. There we go. So, let's bring in the arm. What next? Gene Seal Occult Marines. I mean, to be honest, yeah, you could actually come up with some idea. Maybe some Gene Seed got corrupted. That'd be interesting. Penitent Engine proxies that are recruit in mech suits could work. I actually got an idea for the person who mentioned Age of Sigmar and Cities of Sigmar conversions. One of the things that I wanted to do was to create a Cities of Sigmar army using the Sisters of Battle range, and I was going to use Penitent Engines as proxy steam tanks, and also Sister Repentia as what are they called now? Great swords. I'd basically just swap out the chain swords for actual light two-handed swords. Okay. Yeah, I think that's lining up nicely. It's lining up enough in the arms, so I think we can start to glue everything together. 40k should be 20 variations of corrupted Space Marines, and then all ones equals game balance. Yeah, there needs to be more corrupted Space Marines. Just make everything Space Marines, and then everything's perfectly balanced. But then you start making faction abilities, and that doesn't work then. So I've just added some super glue to these here, and just whilst they're still wet, I'm just going to quickly glue this wrist here with some plastic glue, not super glue this time, but a plastic glue. And I'm just going to hold everything into place whilst I allow it to dry. RTM, could you do conversion for Crusaders? I think their models look really outdated. They do. The old ones are quite old now. I think they're at least, what, 2000s, I think? Early 2000s. So yeah, they're quite dated at the moment. I'm just going to leave that to dry. I don't want to mess with that too much whilst it's drying. There was a nice new one in the US. There's a board game Combat Patrol, which comes with one, which is a nice sculpt, a nice update version of it. But it's, yeah, you'd need a few of those boxes to run a decent number of them. Codex Primaris Lieutenants. I mean, there are enough Primaris Lieutenants. I mean, I think there's about, was there 12 at the last count? I think a few of them special editions, but if you look at things like army books like Lumineth, that's more than there are units in that army book entirely. So yeah, you could do so. Could you do a conversion guide on more obscure Chaos Warbands? Yeah, I think I haven't really looked into them much. Maybe when the Chaos Space Marine Codex drops for 9th edition, we might see some interesting background in there. We've seen some quite nice successor chapters, especially for the... Incidentally, actually, I finished off this guy yesterday. This is my Dark Kraken. Finished painting him. Hope you can see him okay. A few people suggested using Gravis armor. I went for it in this guy. And you can see a few different ornaments and trophies around there. And I've also given him a harpoon gun as well. I've also given him kind of like a nice little rock pool. A rock pool base. But I'm just waiting for that to dry fully before I attach it. McCrack 2, your talent is unreal. Thank you for streaming this great. Thank you very much. I think it's with this kind of work, it's just so much practice and just constantly thinking about conversions all the time. And as soon as you start doing a few conversions, you start to see components differently. You start to see them for what they could be rather than what they're supposed to be. And as soon as that kind of clicks in your head, it makes it much easier to look at a kit and say, okay, that little bit of pulse carbine could be a scope. That little bit of such and such thing could be something else. Okay, so we have the arms in place, which means we can attach the shoulder. Now, this is the thing here. I think this is going to need to be adjusted slightly. So this is what I was going to pop here, but I want it to sit a little bit more up the shoulder. That looks too much. That gives me a big gap at the back. So I think if we trim this down here, that gives a better result. Question, do you think that you'll be doing conversions for some of the Astra Militarum regiments that are mentioned but never had kits? I have done a few of them in the past. I've done Ventrilian Nobles, I've done Sablok Hemdogs, I've done Vostrians, I've done Deathcore of Krieg, I also did, what was the other one as well? One of them, it basically used a Gene Sealer Cult body and it used a Tau Scutari Vanguard head. Can't remember what it's called. Indigan? I can't remember now. If you know what I'm talking about, just mention it in the comments. Dead Animal Bits, yes, that model is literally just give him a harpoon gun and then just stick dead animal bits to it. It's pretty much Do you think War Games Atlantic Afghans are a good basis for talent infantry? I actually have them in a box behind me. And I was thinking about using them for that. And I think that the only trouble is about the non-sci-fi stuff that War Games Atlantic does. It's a little bit more true scale. So it might not quite work. So I don't know. I was going to clip this, but I'm actually not going to clip it. I'm going to sort. Yeah, let's sort it down. Let's sort it down a little bit. I'm basically going to try and remove as much of this curve as possible, just so it's essentially this section here. That's what I'm going to try and do. Indigan Prefects, the basis for my... Yes, there we go. That was the one. Indigan I've done those guys as well. Slaneshi Orcs. Oh, God. I don't think my mental health could tolerate doing Slanesh Orcs. I don't know why. Corn Orcs, yep. Nurgle Orcs. Actually, I am going to use my clippers here. There's quite a lot to remove. Nurgle Orcs, no. No problem. Tzeentch Orcs, even. You could do some pretty cool stuff there, but I'm going to stay away from Slanesh Orcs. Yeah, I think the models. Let's just grab them. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see if I have them in a cupboard still. So I apologise to anyone who is going off tangent here. So these are the Afghan warriors from War Games Atlantic. See them there. So these are the actual bodies themselves. And to give you context, do I have an Imperial Guardsman hand? I don't, but I do have a Space Marine. So you can kind of see by the scale there, they kind of have the right height for them. The only thing I have which is closest to the scale would be... So you can see that they're quite small. And the scale as well is a little bit more historical rather than being sci-fi. So they could be used, could be nice. Maybe you could swap out some... you know what, actually? Bear with me again. Okay, so I've actually got some Satori warriors here. Let's see what these look like next to them. This is probably the best comparison. So there we go. So you can see they're considerably smaller than these kind of just Skotari, which are basically basic humans as well. So not too bad. You could use them. They just wouldn't look quite as good next to other things. What I would recommend using instead would be some conversion components. There's some conversion components out there which you can basically use to make your Imperial Guard into Talon. You can possibly use the heads though. The heads are quite nice. Yeah. The shield's quite good for white scars as well, actually. Anyway. Back on topic, let's continue modifying this shoulder pad. What would you recommend for a Talon army, the Reptilian Overlords kit? Yes, so I've used the Reptilian Overlords head and torso before on a conversion, and they work really nicely, so I would definitely recommend those. I 3D printed mine, so if you can get a hold of the resin ones, then you can use those as well. If you have a 3D printer, then you can just 3D print them off instead. I think the files are pretty cheap, so you can just use that. It's all good. Just going to smooth this out now, get it nice and flat. How is the War Game Atlantic plastic compared to Games Workshop? It's practically the same. It's not really any different. If you look at the kits, there is... Yeah, I mean, I'll just show you by comparison. It's kind of a little bit more shinier. It's hard to see on the camera, but this is like got a slight more kind of a shine to it. It's also a little bit more more finely detailed, I guess. It's a different kind of art style, but their sci-fi kits work really nicely as 40k proxies. they're kind of scaled the same way. They're almost like intended to be used that way. And some really nice kind of space Brits on the way, and we already have space French and space Germans, and yeah, there's the space Vikings, which are actually technically squats. So I've got some of those on the way as well, so I'm going to hopefully get those on the channel pretty soon as well. Question: would you ever make conversion guides for different Forge Worlds for AdMech armies? So this is something that gets asked actually about other factions, and the reason why it's difficult sometimes to do conversions for some of those other factions because Games Workshop literally will just have an aspect of them and mention in the background, and it's very difficult to turn that into an actual physical aesthetic rather than just being a method of their fighting. It's possible though. I think if I got a little bit more into the lore and researched and how to play around, I could possibly get something. So I think this is getting there now. We've basically got a slightly less chunky shoulder pad now that we can use. Have you done regular Gue'Vesa? I've tried it in the past, didn't work out very well. I basically used the Van Saar kit as a basis and then attached some Tau components, but I think I would like to do that again because I used what did I use? The Tau Pathfinder kit as a basis, and it just didn't really work. So I think Tau Fire Auras are probably going to be better to use for that. But I might give it a go in the future. We'll see. Would you ever consider doing a battlesuit conversion? Yeah, this is another one where I don't know if there's enough kind of... Maybe it'd be cool to do something like Titanfall, where the equipment is on the outside. They have like stowage equipment and materials, and it's not as just clean cuts. So you can see there, the shoulder pad's actually looking a lot better now. I'm just going to attach that now before I go any further. Again, I can just use plastic glue for this. Don't need to really worry about it attaching to the resin, so we don't need to use any super glue. Okay. There you go. Okay, just going to leave that to dry for a second. Pop this over there. So the next few areas that we don't have much of it left because I'm going to keep this fairly simple. So we have a helmet. We need to do a helmet first. So I've chosen one of the older Firstborn helmets just from the Space Marine tactical kit. I was going to go for Primus, but these technically aren't Primus Space Marines. These are just Tau Space Marines. So I'm basing the helmet on the Mark... Is it Mark 8 helmet, this one? I think it's the Mark 8. And actually this is really nice because it just fits nicely into there. You can see it just fits nicely into the torsos. The torso is designed really nicely to work with Space Marine components. Just not the arms, it seems. But yeah. Question, can you make Emperor Spears Space Marines? Yeah, they're quite nice actually. I've seen some pretty cool conversions. Very similar to my Dragon Spears conversions actually. But yeah, it'd be pretty cool to do another spear-based faction. So the one thing I want to do with this head is I'm going to use this pretty much as is, but I'm going to add an antenna to it. Now I have these antennas here, which are from, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're from the Breacher heads. I actually can't remember them. I took them from the Fire Warrior kit. They're either attachment. I think they might be. Oh no, I think they're actually attachments for one of the guns that they use. Possibly, I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, these are from the Tau Fire Warrior kit. You can see them there. I'm going to use this as an antenna. It's nicely scaled, so if I just bring in the helmet, you can see it fits nicely against the side of the helmet. But it's a little bit bulky. I need to trim it down a little bit just to make it sit a bit flusher. Question, would you recommend, what would you recommend on doing Valhallan troops? I enjoyed watching the Death Court of Krieg Kitbash video. So, Valhallan, what would you use as a basis? So you have greatcoats. Now, if you want greatcoat legs, if you want to use resin, then Anvil Industry. That's what you need. If it is for plastic that you want, you can possibly use the same kit that I used in that Deathcore of Krieg video. You can use the Grognard's kit as a basis. You would basically need some green stuff in to get the fur lining, things like that. But yeah, you could probably go ahead with using that. It's a Markerite, yeah. I think it must be actually, but either way, works for our purpose. So I'm going to trim off the section here just to make it so I can fit it more easily against the body, and trim this little protuberance as well, and then we can smooth that flat. Can you cut away metal heads? I want to make Primus Azrael, but it's not resin. You can, but you need to use proper jeweler's saws. The really fine kind of ones that have got like diamonds in the blades. But you can use them. Oh man, oops. But I was planning on doing an Azrael conversion that used just plastic kits rather than using one of the fine cast kits, sorry. Might take me a while, but I will get that, I promise, eventually. On topic of conversions, where do you recommend getting Asian-looking heads for something like White Scars, as Games Workshop doesn't sell those separately, not even Forge World? There is... Yeah, you can only get them that I can think of. Where does them? You know, I actually don't... I honestly can't think where it would sell. I can't remember seeing them in my many travels around various different bit suppliers, bits manufacturers. I'm sure there probably are some. There are definitely White Scar inspired helmets from a few different manufacturers. So if you want helmets, then that's good, but I'm not 100% sure. Anything that I can think of would be too small. They'd be more historical units, so that might be a little bit difficult to do that. Okay, so we've got a slightly more trimmed down, but it's still poking out a little bit too much from the helmet. So I'm going to trim down this side here. Now, before I do that, is this actually the right side for... let me just double check. Bear with me. Tau Fire Warriors. Yeah, it's the right side. I thought it was. Okay, so now we're established. I can actually start trimming down this section here just to make a slightly less protruding antenna there. Maybe use the helmet antenna from the Fire Warriors. You could do, yeah, but I think it's a little bit too small. I'm not sure if I have that particular sprue to hand. Yeah, I think the sprue is in the box still. But I wanted to use this one just because it's big and chunky. Calm Low, would you ever do a tutorial for using green stuff for various conversion purposes? I'd love to, but actually I'm not that good with using green stuff. I'd want to get a lot better before I started making tutorials on how to use it. There are a lot better sculptors out there who have done tutorials, so I'd recommend checking those out first, because that's all I'd do if I wanted to improve myself. Can you make a Primus Volcanistan? It would be a nice way to round off the whole Salamander Successor series. Maybe. XV8 antenna are chunky. Yes, they probably are. I think there's a lot of choices basically for this. You can use antenna, you can use Markolites. There's quite a few of these in this kit, so these are quite nice to use. The XV8 you only get a few of them in a kit, so they'll be more expensive. Is that poking out too much? What do you think? I think it's okay. I'm gonna leave that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna trim that down a little bit further. I do apologise for the sounds of this cutting plastic as well, so I know it goes through some people. Like fingers on a chalkboard. Not enough. Make sure it fits your neck socket. Yeah, I've had to just double check it. Luckily, the neck is kind of quite high, but yeah, I do need to make sure as long as I look over this side, I can probably get away with attaching it as it is. But yeah, I'm just going to trim this section down a little bit more. Let's leave a file for this. Would you be interested in trying a conversion for the Maccabean Janissaries Imperial Guard Regiment? So I've been kind of thinking about those guys for a while. There is a Liber Demonica, a bits conversion website, which I have some bits for, which I need to do some videos using actually. They have some Imperial Guard components coming soon, and they have some really nice Janissary heads that you could use. That's the only thing I've really struggled with, getting a hold of some decent ones for that. But yeah. Do you happen to have any helmeted Tech Marine heads you could try instead? Yes, I do, but I'm probably going to save them. But yeah, they could work nicely. So let's see if I bring this against the body. Does it still fit? Yeah, it still fits. Yeah, I'm just going to go for that. Let's just glue that in. Okay. So we've got the shoulder, the gun, and the head now. What's your actual armies that you use in 40k? White Scars, Farsight, and War? This is mine. I actually don't have any full 40k armies. At the moment, I've got a Death Guard, which is in progress, but not really have not really got any other armies for 40k. I used to have Black Templars. That used what I used way back in the day, but yeah, nothing in. Nothing recent. I do need to do some more though. I'm tempted to get to some eventually, but I'm currently building up some Age of Sigmar armies at the moment. Yeah, I think that's what we go for so far. So the only thing we need to do now is the backpack. I was going to keep it simple here. I basically grabbed one of these Mark 8 backpacks, the older style ones. Again, I wanted to use something that wasn't just Primaris for a change. Mac Joker, just tuned in. What are you using? So the bodies here are from Anvil Industries. The body, and there's these two separate components. These here. These are from Anvil Industries. These are their Exo Lord Rangers, torsos and legs. They're the basis, and then I'm using Intercessor arms there. Mark old school Firstborn Marine helmets. The shoulder pads from a Tail Battle Suit. And these little extra items on the gun are from a Fire Warrior carbine. UH Credhead, hi Pete, keep up your good work, bud. Your vids are relaxing and really chill to watch. Thank you very much. I don't want to go crazy with these. Just want to have like a nice, relaxing environment. You can see how my brain works in these conversions. I can converse with you guys. I can chat. I can ask questions. It's a lot more of a laid back, less intense format than doing the normal videos, so yeah, it's quite fun for that. So anyway, backpack. Grabbed a backpack from a Space Marine, grabbed a backpack from a Fire Warrior. I'm just going to smush them together because I don't think I need to do anything else. I think the only thing I need to do is just to trim it down, but that works. It fits the torso, it's a power pack to power the armor, and then we've got a few Tau-based antenna radio equipment, life support systems. I don't know what they are, but they're going to go on the backpack. Happy birthday, yes, it's Luke. I assume it's just Luke. But yeah, if your birthday's on a Saturday or a Sunday, then chances are I will be streaming on them this year. So happy birthday. So first thing, I'm going to trim this down, trim this small little protuberance. What are your plans for plastic mandrakes? Ah, yes, that's something I was going through my list today of things I could do on this live stream because I was going to do some painting for the Dark Kraken. But I actually finished painting him last night, so there wasn't really much point in doing a painting live stream for him. And it was either going to be these guys, which I've been meaning to do for a while, or it was going to be plastic mandrakes. But I've got some ideas for them. Don't worry. What faction is this, Mike? This is Tau. This is a Tau Space Marine, also known as Gue'Ron'Vesa. Or I don't know. I don't think anyone's. No one's corrected me yet. Is it Gue'Ron'Vesa? Gue'Ron'Vesa? Who knows? Just trim down the backpack there as well. Just give us a better surface to glue to. Question: are you planning on doing an Armor Grad and Steel Legion conversion? The metal models are showing their age. Arthur Larson, I have already done one, my friend. I have already done a Steel Legion conversion guide. I would include the link, but if someone is, I don't have a keyboard super close to me, so if someone would like to include that in there, then yeah. I think it's Goo like in Che Guevara. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I have no authority, that's how I share it. Yeah, Goo. Gue'Ron'Vesa. Gue'Ron'Vesa. Okay, I'm close enough. Close enough. Oh, we've got someone else, Gue'Ron'Vesa. I think it's Gua. Question: do these Gue'Ron'Vesa still have a chapter name? No, these are basically just, they don't really have a chapter. They're kind of just Tau auxiliaries. So which way to do this backpack now? It fits better upside down, but I think it looks better that way. Kind of like the slightly off-center aspect to it as well. Needs to be filed down a little bit more, though it's not perfectly fitting. Gue'Ron'Vesa. Would you be open to kitbashing a Sigismund model? Quite a nice idea. Was he the Sigismund? Is he the? He's not the first Empress champion, is he? Is that a 30k model? Or was that Sigmund? I don't know. Ever plan on doing an Orc clan conversions, like more specific clan looking orcs? That would be nice, yeah, because I think those kind of clans actually do have. Actually, that's another army that I did actually collect back in the day. I had some Death Skulls, are they? The blue ones, the ones that like to loot stuff a lot more. I think I had some of those guys, and I basically had some Grot conversions, which were basically Empire flagellants that had all these little orky motifs and had some last ones, and they were some of my earliest conversions. But yeah, my reasoning behind it was that they looted everything, even humans, and I basically just ran them as Grots, and it was quite funny just to watch some human-sized guys in rags carrying las guns. Worked quite well, actually. So yeah, just really simple on the backpack front here, just literally gluing a Tau backpack to a Space Marine backpack. It's not elegant, it's not complex, but you know, sometimes you just got to keep it simple. Okay, I'm just going to keep that there, just let it dry before I glue it to the backpack. Get a sip of water too. Question: would you ever do a Tau OG stealth suit? Oh yeah, I remember the old metal stealth suits, are kind of like the small ones, are basically like slightly more up-armored fire warriors. Nice idea. Also, thank you everyone for just something that's just appeared in this stream. I've never seen it before. Everyone is actually putting question at the beginning of a comment, so I can literally just scan and be like, okay, that's a question. Thank you very much. It makes life easier. I should have just implemented this in the future, and I think I will do in the future from now on. Question: would you ever consider doing a Dark Mechanicus conversion? Let's see your take on them. Yes, it's always been something that's in the back of my mind to do. Everyone always requests it, and I just haven't got around to doing it yet because I keep doing Space Marine conversions. Sorry guys, sorry if you're a Space Marine, but yeah, if you're not a Space Marine player. Okay, so that can just basically just be glued straight to the backpack now. I'm going to use some super glue for this. Yeah, remember KISS, keep it stupid, simple, stupid. Yeah, I used to have a design and technology teacher who used to whose basically complete mantra was keep it simple. Pretty much everything. If it was too complex, it was over-engineered, or it wasn't doing its job properly. You need to keep things simple. Do you have plans to convert Skitarii representative of different Forge worlds, either Skitarii or Tech Beast? Actually, someone has already mentioned that in the stream. I'll say the same comments that I made to them. It's definitely something I would like to do. It's a little bit more tricky because some of their aspects aren't always easily transferable into physical features, physical aesthetics. Statement: we are starting to sound like HK47. Nice little Knights of the Old Republic reference there. I do appreciate that. Cromlech does some pretty good orc stuff. The head sculpts for orcs are kind of awful in my opinion. Yeah, the orc stuff is pretty cool. The heads, I do agree, they're very animated, a little bit over animated, a little bit cartoony in a way, caricaturish. Question: what is the best way to make a Night Lord helmet? I can't find any good ones. The best way is to Google Pete the Wargamer Night Lord conversion and watch the video that I did on the exact same thing. Basically, I used the Chaos helmet and some little batwing things from some Grave Guard from Age of Sigmar. But yeah, it's the best way to do Night Lord's heads. Or if you want to just buy them, then Liber Demonica have some pretty good ones as well, actually. So yeah, I think we're actually getting really close now. I was tempted to add something to the shoulder here, though. I think it's looking a little bit too flat, and it's making the torso look a little bit un-Space Marine-y. I don't have anything to hand to use, though. Do you think Fire Lords are salamanders or Imperial Fists? It's an interesting one because we only seem to have recently got salamander chapters, official successor chapters, and for a long time we haven't had any. And rather than Games Workshop just turning around and saying, "Oh yeah, these ones that everyone thought were salamanders are salamanders," they actually made 4 new ones, which was interesting, really. So it kind of it might change when the salamanders book comes out. What do you think, guys? Yeah or nay? Regular Space Marine Pauldron? Should I keep it? Bit too much? With or without? With or without? I feel like an optician. What else do I have? I don't think I have much else. How would regular Fire Warrior shoulder pad look on him from the up unpadded arm? Do I have... I actually don't have this. I've got every other sprue apart from the ones that have the shoulder pads on. Bear with me. Let me just have a dig out. 2 round. Yeah, I think it is 2 round. Phobos Armor Pauldron could do. Slightly smaller. Let me just see if I can dig out. I thought I had all the sprues, but I didn't. Actually didn't plan things properly here. So if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm basically digging through a box of sprues to look for the shoulder pads. Is that it? I think I've got it. Yes, I found it. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. There we go. Maybe cutting the knee plate from a tail fire's legs and then connecting that to the arm would be good, possibly. When in doubt, shove a skull on it. Yeah, I could do. I think this is one of the few models I can't get away with just using an actual dead animal bit on. I've actually got to keep it Space Marine. But yeah, how are we doing So let's see which one we could use here. See, these are actually quite big, you know. These are surprisingly big. Let's remove one of these Fire Warrior ones. The Breacher ones are a little bit smaller, but a bit chunkier as well. So let's just click quickly. Clip one of those off. Okay, it's a little bit smaller actually. That might work. I think that works nicely. Thanks for your suggestion, guys. Makes it much easier when I've got some... I'm not just relying on the voice inside my head for these kind of things. Could cut along the seam to give it a blockier but small look. I think that works quite nice as it is, actually. I think I'd mess up if I cut along that seam. I'd mess up that little cut out. So I'm going to leave it for now. I'm just going to let's go for this. Just trim that up first. Apologise for the scraping. Question: with the Space Wolves Codex just released, any thoughts on doing a Primus Ulruk, the Slayer conversion? Yeah, that's quite a nice idea because his is actually a plastic kit. His existing model is a plastic kit, so it would be much easier than much easier to do than the fine cast conversions I've been doing recently. So that's a good idea, actually. Potentially, when I've got Cantor to do next, Pedro Cantor of the Crimson Fists, and then after that I have already promised people to do Azrael, so he'll be probably next after that. Unless I get distracted and sidetracked like I usually do. There we go. You know, I think we've got it there. I think the only thing I'm going to do now, I think as it stands at the moment, I'm actually really happy with how it's turned out. What I'm going to do next is just add a little bit of equipment to his waist, because these torsos don't actually have anything on them. They don't have any pouches or anything. So let's... Oops. Leave that to glue there. Maybe place some additional plastic to give it a little bit of space between the shoulder pad and the shoulder. Yeah, that could work actually. Nice idea. Would you ever consider doing cultists for Fabius Bile based on Delacoute gang models? Nice idea, yeah. It'd be cool to do some sort of creations of Bile, like his little lab assistants or something like that. Would be pretty interesting. Is that a Markalite on his helmet? It is a Markalite on his helmet. He's using it as a an antenna as opposed to... I mean, I could have used one of the antennas from the Fire Warrior kits, but they are quite small, just by comparison. So there's the actual antennas. You can see they're like basically twice the difference in size. So yeah, can maybe stick one of those on the other side if I wanted to. That'd work quite nicely. This is the great thing about the Tau Fire Warrior kit, because you get so many extra bits on here. It's amazing. It's actually a really nice kit for converting. What have we got to attach to the belt? Let's just add some ion grenades. I think that's what they are. I think these pouches look really small though. That's the only thing I'm worried about. I might have to go for some Space Marine pouches here, just to bulk it out a bit. Thank you very much, Mike Osoko. Hey Pete, love your videos. Back once again to put my request for Mortifactors. Will love to see your take on it, both with model and paint scheme. How would you do a skull mask? How would I do a skull mask? And the first thing that comes to mind to me is the Reavers. Obviously, they have a half skull helmet as well. But I don't think that's quite scully enough. There are some really cool kind of skull helmets that I've actually got in a What have I got? What have I got? What have I got? Are they from Cromlech? I've got some from Cromlech, but I've also got some from Liber Demonica. So yeah, they could actually be They could work really well for those. Wrong sprue. Where's the sprue with all the pouches on it? I probably must have used them all. Oh no, there we are. Got them. I'm just going to grab it. I'm going to keep it simple again. But yeah, there's some pretty cool skull helmet components out there you can use. I probably wouldn't, if I was going to make my own, I'd maybe start with a Reaver helmet, cut away the little amplifier speakers that are next to the sides, and then shave back the dome on the forehead and resculpt some kind of eyebrows on there as well. Tau sword would work for the waist. It would do, actually. The only thing, I've got one in the kit, so I might save that. This is the trouble. I start hoarding components then. I'm like, oh, I'm going to save that. It's like potions in Skyrim, and you have like a whole inventory full of potions that you never use just in case you need them in the future. Question, Primus Grey Knight. This is something that always gets mentioned, and it's always something which is a difficult one to spin. You know, I always say you can explain something away, but the Grey Knight lore doesn't really give it enough to make a Primus version of. I think there is a chapter though, isn't there? Isn't there supposed to be like a chapter, I think it got mentioned before, a chapter where they are based on the Grey Knight gene seed, I think. Question, how big is your bits collection actually? It is huge. I mean, if you're not already aware, there's a brand of plastic boxes, storage boxes called Really Useful Boxes. And I have some of the 9 litre boxes, and at the moment I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 11 of them full with sprues for bits, for conversions. And then I also have some big 64 litre ones, which have got some boxes in there of other kits and things like that. But yeah, my kit collection for these conversions is massive, and I still don't have everything. It's huge. Mike Soko, thank you once again. Cheesebit, I'll give that a go. I'll try to shoot you a donation whenever I catch your live streams. I know Mortifactors aren't the most. Thank you very much for your support. Everyone who supports this channel, I really do appreciate it. I know at the moment as well, for people, it's very difficult at the moment. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people's businesses aren't going as well. I mean, my wife is a wedding videographer, so she's been unable to film any weddings basically since the start of everything going on. So everyone who does donate, be it through the super chats, be it through the Patreon, things like that, it's all just hugely appreciated. And it just means I can go out and I can use this money to buy myself more kits and do some more interesting components and conversions. There we go. Using super glue for them, just attach those. Oh, they look a bit weird actually. I think they've got a little bit of a lip to them, which makes them, yeah, they're a bit weird. Let's clean that up. Christopher Blouse, hello, just joined. What have I missed? You've missed the whole conversion, Chris. That's what you've missed. You've missed the entire conversion here, I'm afraid. Yes, basically, Gue'Ron'Vesa, Tau Space Marine. I'm not sure exactly how it ends up being like that, but yeah. Just going to move that there. Just small tabs getting in the way. Question, could you do a Loyalist Alpha Legion or other Traitor Legion, Primus, Ultima Founding Successor, given that it seems unlikely Core would just give up on using Traitor Gene Seed? Yeah, so I actually did a little bit of something a good while ago, actually. I did some Death Guard Primus, I did someone else as well, did I? But yeah, that was quite nice to do some Traitor Gene Seed Primus. So yeah, that works better. Just helps to bulk out the waist a little bit. I think we do need something Tau on there though. What have we got on the Tau kit that we can use here? Primus kit. Let's go for one of these small pouches with an ion grenade or a pulse grenade. Where'd you get legs? Yes, Anvil Industry. Exo Lord Rangers. Could you do a scout for each legion? Again, nice idea. It gives like an interesting aspect, especially for like space wolves and things like that. That's pretty cool. Tail pistol holder or knife maybe. I did try the pistols, but they're a little bit too small. They look more like water pistols in the hands of a space marine. This is true about the scale thing. Convert scale model tanks for orcs. Yeah, that's quite a nice idea actually. It'd be pretty cool just to see an orc rolling around in a Panzer III. I was wondering if you ever seen Warlord Games did a mouse, an MAUS mouse, a German super heavy tank that was like 2 or 3 actually made of in reality, and it's just huge, and it's 1/56 scale, which is slightly smaller than what Games Workshop's Imperial Guard and Humans are, and it's huge, it's massive, it's ridiculously sized. He needs a melee weapon. He doesn't need a melee. He's got fists. He's got armored fists. He can just punch a Space Marines with. There we go. I'm quite happy with that. I think it's the torso's a little bit odd. The torso is maybe a little bit higher. I'm not sure if it's just the arm position, but maybe. And I think once it's got a coat of paint, it always makes it look different. Sometimes having these two-tone colours can make the model look different than it will do when it's actually painted. But yeah, I think, yeah, quite happy with that. It's a nice prototype anyway, at least. Something that I can work on for future tutorials, and maybe do like a full actual video on this rather than just doing the live stream, so people don't have to sit through what we're on an hour and 20 minutes to figure out how to convert a Gue'Ron'Vesa. I can't even pronounce it. Gue'Ron'Vesa. There we go. Question: would you ever do a Lizardmen Tau conversions? There's actually a really nice War Games Atlantic kit. They're coming out, some Lizardmen, and they have some sci-fi components on them as well. Quite nice. Joseph Jackson, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I do appreciate your support. He's very tall. Have I got a normal Space Marine? Yes, I do have a normal Space Marine. So he's a Primaris, and he's actually the same height. He's just a little bit skinnier. Here we go. What kind of sprue cutter did you use? This is from Redgrass Games. Really nice, like sharp one. I think someone mentioned God Hand ones, and these seem to be very, very, very similar to those kind of very, very sharp. Mike Osoko, welcome to the channel again. Thank you for becoming a member. I do appreciate it. What are you thinking for colour scheme? Classic Tau. So the artwork for these guys, if you search Gue'Ron'Vesa, there's some really nice red and black scheme that works like it's. I think it's a Shadow Sun colours. But yeah. Question is this going to be a shortened video? Possibly, yeah. Everyone seems to really like this anyway. It's one of those conversions where I feel like Farsight, not Shadow Sun. Yes, thank you. Shadow Sun is the female Tau commander, isn't she? Farsight is the Tau Enclave. Yes. Anyway, sorry. Trailer thought getting distracted there. Yeah, maybe we'll do a shortened video. I kind of wanted to a proof of concept. I have a few every component I've used here. I have more of. Maybe not the shoulder pad though. Might have to cannibalize that for the future video. But yeah, that's potentially to see something like this in the future. It would be pretty cool to do a 6, well, more likely by an 8-minute video in the future. Question, going to convert the Horus Heresy models. I haven't really thought about doing that, mainly because I'm not super up to speed with the Horus Heresy lore. I like to have a good grasp of the background. It'd be nice to have a little bit more understanding of what they are before I can do some decent conversions for those. We have Girl Painting in the chat as well. Check out her channel as well if you're interested. I think you've been going for as long as me, I believe. What's your thoughts on 3D printed cinematic extensions like muzzle flash, rocket, smoke, jump? I actually really like that. They're pretty cool. There's a few companies that make components for them. They're nice if you want to do kind of like dioramas and things like that. But yeah, they're quite nice. If you do some like OSL effects to them as well, pretty cool. You're gonna make more? I might make one more of this guy. I'm not gonna do like a full army of them because I don't have a full army of anything. It took me an hour to make one model, and about 3 different kits. So. Have you already done some Tau Guardsmen, or could you do it in the future? Yes, I will be doing it in the future. I will give them a go. I have some ideas. I did try it before. I did some prototypes. Didn't really work too well. I'm going to give it another go in the future, I think. Question: ever considered doing some conversion videos with Infinity? I have looked at the Infinity range. I think, if I remember rightly, their scale's a little bit different than Space Marine, so I wouldn't necessarily do 40k conversions using those components because the scale's a little bit off and it would be quite noticeable. But do you think that the Star Wars Geonosian would work good for a Tau army? I'm guessing you're talking about the Star Wars Legion miniatures. I'm not sure really. I haven't used those models. I've used the other Star Wars Legion models, obviously painted them. I haven't seen their size, but they could work for maybe nice Vespid alternatives. They both have the wings, don't they? Any Orc or Croc stuff planned in the future? Yes, I do have some Orc stuff in mind. Not sure what yet. It will really will depend on what I fancy doing at the time. But yeah, we'll see in the future. A question: would you consider converting some Stormcast Eternals, and if so, any thoughts on how? So one of the things that I quite like about the Stormcast Eternals is their grittier side that kind of comes through in some of the novels. If you've read the Goat Trek ones, the Age of Sigmar Goat Trek novels, then there's kind of some there's a Stormcast character in there who's basically he's battered. I think he's a Lord Ordinator, and his arms are his armor's damaged. It's bent. He's spitting sparks all the time, and it kind of has like a really nice aspect to him. And he's also slightly unhinged and a little bit delusional because he ended up killing. I think he got tasked. He had to kill like a village or something like that. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but he had to kill like a village, and because they were falling to the Flesh Eater Court's kind of madness, and so he was very kind of troubled inside, and he didn't really want to talk about it, and it was kind of like an interesting darker aspect to these. And in the front of the recent Stormcast Army book as well, it's got much more of a darker portrayal of them. I do like that aspect. So yeah, maybe in the future I'll probably go down that aspect. Maybe go for more trinkets and trophies and damaged armor. I think that'd be cool. Do you think using Squig as a base for making pink blue horrors is a good idea? Honestly, yeah, I think it'd be quite a fun thing to do. At the end of the day, if you paint it pink and blue, then who can say that it's not a pink or blue horror? I think they should bring out Warhammer 20k, a war game where you fight as the Emperor against the Techno-Barbarians on Terra. That would actually make a really nice box game, like a self-contained kind of box game. It would be pretty cool. You could have the old... I think it was the Thunder Warriors around then. That'd be pretty cool. Have you considered making a Beastmen 40k or Squat or some Xenos? Yeah, we'll be doing some more Xeno in the future. There's some plans for that. There is also a kit that I'm getting, the Einherjar. They're from Wargames Atlantic. They're basically space Vikings that have been on a really high gravity planet, and over generations they've basically got smaller and become dwarves. Quite interesting. They might make some nice squat bases. Yeah, Stormcasts are basically lawful good fanatics. The more they are reforged, the more fanatic they... Yeah, and they also lose more and more of their own personalities every time they're reforged. And it'd be quite interesting. One of the ideas that I had was for a... there was a small line in one of the codexes or the army books before where basically the reforging process can go wrong. And it'd be interesting to do a group of Stormcasts, maybe like that had been kind of bunched together. They were the reforged. They were... that had basically had problems, and in the end they basically get banded together and just sent out on suicide missions because they're not fully there. They're not. That'd be quite interesting. Question: you should try to convert up some Blood Angels Aralim. Not sure about that. I might have to check that one. So I'm basically going to be wrapping the stream up now. So if you want to get any questions in, get them in the last couple of minutes. I will answer the last few, and I will be disappearing because my throat is getting sore from talking so much. I very rarely talk for an hour and a half constantly, so it's not really normal for me. This is great. I've been looking around how to make Tau Space Marine to add to my collection. I'm glad it's helpful. Like I said, you can use this video as a basis in the future, and if you wanted to. I probably am going to do an actual spin-off video. I think an hour and a half is a long time for someone to sit watching this, especially when I go off on tangents and talking about random sprues from War Games Atlantic and things like that. So big thank you for Dark Mirror of the Sanguinian God. Question, sorry, I think I missed it. What glues do you use? I have so many issues with Superglue products. So the glue that I use, Superglue is just Army Painter. I've used Gorilla Glue in the past, so that was pretty cool, so I'd recommend using that. So this is just Army Painter Super Glue. It does go bad, I found, though, after a while, especially if you keep leaving the lid on. So as long as you keep the lid on, it lasts quite a while. It can dry up otherwise. And plastic glue, I use Plastic Magic. Nice little brush applicator with that as well. So yeah. Any recommendations for places that sell orc miniatures or conversion bits? Cromlech's pretty good for orc stuff. Check those guys; they have quite a good range of stuff for orcs. Some of the heads are a little bit dated, but some of the stuff's pretty cool there. Do you think you could do something with the soon-to-be French resistance models? I have ideas for them. The only problem that I think I'm going to face is the fact that, like I said, with the Afghan models, which I've got here, their scale is going to be closer to this kind of scale, I'm guessing. So it might not work quite as well. 40k might be a little bit too small, but we'll see when we get them. Could you do me a Sanguina conversion anytime? It's a pretty cool model, actually. You wouldn't go far wrong by using my Dante conversion as a basis. Not far off, really. It's not too different from a... You could use one of the Stormcast characters, like I think the Knight, is it a Knight Venator? Something like that. Bring this back, you can see there. Do you know any conversion bits for Necrons? You know what? I actually don't. I haven't seen any. There might be a few 3D printed ones, but I've not seen any for sale. So, unfortunately not. I think someone asked earlier, but you missed it. Could you Primus kill Team Cassius? He is the chaplain, the Ultramarine chaplain. Yeah, it'd be quite cool to do a Primus version of him. Nice suggestion. All right, I'm probably going to leave it there now, guys. So, a big thank you to everyone who has joined me for this live stream. It's been good to do another conversion on a live stream. Just kind of going through that prototyping process, and you've been able to see how my brain comes up with these ideas for conversions. A lot of the time, it's just messing around, comparing components, cutting them up to see what works and what doesn't. So yeah, huge thank you to everyone who's donated on the stream. A couple of people have become members as well. Thank you very much. Everything you do massively helps this channel. It allows me to experiment with different kind of ideas. So yeah, massive thank you to everyone who has supported me on Patreon, buy me a coffee, super chats, everything like that. Thank you very much. If you haven't done so already, just be sure to join my Discord. There is a link in the description below. Lots of cool people on there. If you want advice on painting, converting, 3D printing, you want to talk about homebrew Space Marine chapters, it's everything on there. You can leave suggestions for future videos in there. I have a little section that you can do. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for this weekend's live stream. I'll be back again next weekend, and I will hopefully see you all again then soon. And we have obviously some more videos coming this week. We have a T80 painting video, a little preview before you guys go. T80 for any Flames of War fans. We have some 15mm Soviet tanks coming, and we also have the Dark Kraken as well, the conversion guide going up this Friday. So big thank you for everyone for joining me, and I will see you again soon.